All right, so if we think about this chapter in chunks, you should take note of the fact that this is the first chapter that doesn't focus around one event. So we've said every other chapter in this book is focused on a day or an event, and this one instead kind of garbles together different pieces. So we notice that Fitzgerald is breaking his mold. This should draw our attention to understand we have to read this chapter a little differently. He also begins the chapter by saying, hey, I'm going to tell you everything that I found out about Gatsby later, but I feel like you need to know it now. Nick isn't going to hear all of this information about who Gatsby is until chapter 8. But Nick says, no, I found out too late. You need to know this now before we go any further. Tell me some of the details about Gatsby's real background. Okay, so he's from North Dakota. Remember, he tried to pass himself off as being from the Midwest. Now, this isn't that far from what we would consider the Midwest. It's still kind of what we would consider like the heartland part of the country. But what's not true about his background? He grew up poor. This is a guy who we already yesterday caught him in the lie about where his money came from. He said he inherited it. Then yesterday he said it took him 3 years, and Nick called him out on it, and he was just like, and tried to brush it away. Now we know why. Is Gatsby even his real name? So it's not that far off, right? We could see that. Why reinvent himself? How does this involve Dan Cody? So Dan Cody's boat is on the lake here. It's starting to move too far towards the shore. Gatsby's sitting on the shore and recognizes it, and he sees this guy's going to wreck his boat. So he goes out, he tells him to move it, and in that moment decides, I'm going to reinvent myself. I'm tired of being who I used to be. I'm not James Gatz anymore. I'm now Jay Gatsby. Think in your own sense. Have you ever thought about changing your name? Or doing something drastic? Maybe all of a sudden you decided, I don't want to go by my first name, I'm going to go by my middle name. Or you change schools and you decide, hey, this is a fresh start. This is my opportunity to present myself the way I want to. Think about Gatsby doing something similar here, except that it pays off. Now, if you go down to page 3, the way this document works is the first 2 pages are just kind of the basic summary. If you've ever worked with SparkNotes, you know exactly what this is doing. The second page, or the third, fourth, and then I think it goes to a 5th page, kind of go in depth with each of these parts to go, hey, what do we need to know? Before we go, well, no, we can talk about this part first. So this is our information part. Let's talk a little bit about the analysis part here. What's important is that quote that you see on page 2 for this section. It talks about, and I'm going to read it from the book. It says, but Gatsby's heart was in a constant and turbulent riot. The most grotesque and fantastic conceits haunted him in his bed at night. So grotesque, fantastic ideas. A universe of ineffable gaudiness spun itself out in his brain while the clock ticked on the washstand and the moon soaked with wet light his tangled clothes upon the floor. Each night he added to the pattern of his fancies until drowsiness closed down upon some vivid scene with an oblivious embrace. For a while, these reveries provided an outlet for his imagination. They were a satisfactory hint of the unreality of reality, a promise that the rock of the world was founded securely on a fairy's wings. I want to talk about some of those bits. Do fairies exist? No. So can we base the foundation of the world on a fairy's wings? No. This paragraph kind of tells you that Gatsby spends every night dreaming about what he could be, and every night he adds a little bit more fancifulness to it until he starts to understand the unreality of reality. This is a man who literally one day decided, I'm going to be somebody different, and he did. He has a belief that he can do anything, that the rock of the world is founded on a fairy's wings. If I can dream it, I can make it happen. One thing to add here, does his money come from Dan Cody? No. They specifically point out that it doesn't because there's an issue with some woman that gets in the way. Because Nick wants it clear. Dan Cody does not finance Gatsby. That money comes from somewhere else. It's going to be something illegal. We are going to know that. But Nick wants to make it clear. Don't get confused and think, oh, Gatsby must have inherited his money here. Nope. After telling us Gatsby's real background, he goes on here. And he now tells us about a day that he was over at Gatsby's house and Tom just showed up with these two other people. What are they riding? How do they get to Gatsby's house? So they show up to Gatsby's house on horseback. They were literally riding horses around the neighborhood. They show up. Gatsby invites them in. Hey, come on in. He's playing the role of host. He offers them drinks. Do they take him up on it? Nope. He offers them food. Do they want any of it? Nope. If you're a guest, should you? Yeah. Otherwise, why would you have stopped? If you don't want something to drink and you don't, why are you stopping? Why are you doing this? So it's weird. Then all of a sudden, Mrs. Sloan, at least as far as Nick understands her to be, invites Gatsby to join them for dinner. Do Tom and Mr. Sloan want Gatsby to join them for dinner? No, because they leave. And they leave because they have a good opportunity. Gatsby says he can't join them on horseback because he doesn't own any. What does Gatsby have to go and get? We know that Gatsby did not grow up with money. And we said from the very beginning of the book that there's a big difference between East Egg and West Egg. We said that East Egg is the more fashionable part of town. And the reason it is because East Egg is old money. It's full of rich people who have always been rich, like Tom Buchanan and Daisy. People that have inherited their money, been well educated, always had that privilege. West Egg is not as fashionable because it's full of people that are what we call new money. They've earned it within their lifetime, kind of like Gatsby. Notice that the people that show up to his house are riding horses. Is that old or new? Gatsby can't join them because he doesn't have a horse. He only has a car. Cars, old or new? Notice how really quickly Fitzgerald tells you, hey, we have to see this in this light. Gatsby doesn't fit into this society that's present because he doesn't come from it. So by using something as simple as a horse and a car, he's able to show us these two don't mix. It's oil and water. But what does he decide to tell us? Hey, let's put in this chapter a time they do try to get together. Gatsby invites Daisy and Tom to one of his parties. It is the first time Daisy's been there. We get lots of details about the fact that Daisy kind of runs off and sits with Gatsby. That Tom is trying to talk to girls at this party. Daisy sees it and literally hands him a pencil to write down their phone numbers. She's practically giving him a free pass, like, hey, so that I can hang out with my boyfriend, you go deal with whatever kind of skanks you can find here. But at the end of the party, does Daisy have a good time? Nope. But what was the point of all of these parties that Gatsby threw? The whole point of them was to impress her. She finally shows up to one. She's not impressed. Why? Well, I've already kind of said it. Old money and new money don't mix. And the people that are at this party are just, going all out. And Daisy's a little insulted by how all out they go. She doesn't find it proper. She's a little put off. So in the last section after the party, Nick is talking to Gatsby. Gatsby's upset because Daisy didn't have a good time. He doesn't know what's going on here. Nick says one simple thing to him. Hey, you can't expect too much. He says, hey, you can't repeat the past. You know, the relationship you had with her was before, man. You can't bring back what used to be. How does Gatsby respond?
I'll be like, of course I can.
Of course I can. Because this guy believes he can do anything. He believes because he was able to reinvent himself, because he was able to imagine it, because he has earned all this money, because he has bought this house, because he has done all these things, I can repeat the past. I can make this work. Can he? Nope. We know that. And that feeling that we get is our realization of like pity. Because we go, oh, dude, no way. Fitzgerald tells you one simple thing. So if you look at the very end of the document, the last section focuses on a small detail that he throws out before Gatsby mentions this thing about repeating the past. And he says that as Nick and him start to have this conversation, Gatsby is walking down a desolate path of fruit rinds and discarded favors and crushed flowers. Remember, this is after the party. And so if we go all the way back to chapter 3, the first Gatsby party, we had that 2-page section that describes all the details about what a Gatsby party is like. The colors, the streamers, the drinks, everything. But they specifically mention the cartons of lemons and fruits that are brought in and juiced. They mention the colorful banners and party favors that are everywhere. They mention the amount of flowers that are all over the place. After this party, Gatsby is walking on a path of trash produced by his party. What was the purpose of a Gatsby party? To impress Daisy. Did it work? Gatsby's dream is to get Daisy back. He's literally walking on a pathway of his broken dreams. Even though this is chapter 6, Fitzgerald, as writer, is already telling you this relationship is not going to work. He already told you that back in chapter 5. Remember the light and that conversation about how Gatsby loses that magical item. His count of enchanted objects diminishes by 1 in that point. Even there, Fitzgerald is telling you, this relationship is not about two people in love. It's about a guy who is in love with the memory of the girl that he had years ago. And he wants to recapture what he had, but it's impossible. This chapter works as a logic puzzle. It breaks the formula that Fitzgerald has used through the whole book so far, which is I'm going to focus on one event or one day in each chapter. Instead, we get a hodgepodge of days because this did not happen sequentially. Nick constructs it to bring us to the conclusion. Gatsby and Daisy will not happen. When we get to chapter 7 in a few days, you will see that's actually the climax of the book. That is one of the most inciting and dramatic moments, but he's already told you where we're going, and it's not great. Now, let's talk quickly about where we are going in the next couple of days. If you look at your your Canvas page, you notice you might have to refresh it to get the document to work. I noticed it wasn't working correctly, the link for today's assignment. We're going to be doing a character autopsy. This is where you pick one character from the book and you kind of dig into, hey, what motivates them? Hey, how do we describe them? We're going to take this for a test grade. And so this is your way of showing what you know about the book in a way that's not multiple choice and in a way that's not an essay. There are certain requirements that go with it, like isolating quotes that describe your character, like being able to talk about specific characteristics and symbols and things that represent them. You can hand draw this picture, or you can use a digital picture if you choose. The assignment outlines how each part is weighed. And so really, it is up to you how you want to put this together. We will be working on this today, tomorrow, and Thursday. It's due Thursday. Some of you need to hear this because we are only doing 3 test grades for sure this 6 weeks. We're not going to have something that's going to get dropped. So those of you that need points and are trying to pass, you got to do this and you got to do this well. Today, all you have to do is pick one character. Let me give you a piece of advice. If you're looking at the list and you're going, well, everybody's going to do Gatsby, it's because it's obvious. Don't overthink it. People that pick minor characters have a really hard time with this assignment because they're like, well, I can't figure out what to do. Yeah, I know, because you didn't listen. Do the obvious characters. It's going to make this assignment a lot easier on you. Stop this. So all you got to do is